Hello, everybody, and welcome to PGS Treks. I am your host, Arden, and of course, we have with us today Julian. Julian, how are you tonight?
Well, aside from some weird technical glitches, I guess we're doing okay tonight, RM.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. And of course, guys, we're going to be talking about this incredible season of Picard, season three, which has just been so incredibly phenomenal. Um, as I was telling you the other day, it was more than I possibly could have imagined. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to even watch it. But Julian, you know what I was thinking about? After we watched the live watch party the other night, I was thinking about how Robert has been watching it and he's been watching it. He watched it all 10 episodes at once, Julian.
Yeah,
And
lucky.
well, to be honest with you, I don't know whether I could do all 10 at once. I mean, obviously it'd be a very long stream, time to watch the show. But um, funny enough, I mean, it is a very different experience waiting for it week to week. And I think I kind of enjoyed that. What about you?
Well, I like the week to week format for most of my stuff. I like the
And can you move
anticipation.
closer to the microphone on your phone? Because we can't hear you back there.
Now, I'm kind of crowding my camera. um, actually, because it should be coming through here, so I don't understand why that's working that way. Because I'm hearing you through my headphones. um, I enjoy the week to week. I enjoyed it with a lot of the other um, shows that I've watched. I like the anticipation and ruminating over what it is that I saw. I think binging often leads people to just kind of like it's convenient for watching over and over, but for a lot of people, they watch it and then not too long after they're like, what did I watch? I can't remember it all. So I like watching it as it comes out weekly, and it reminds me of when TNG originally aired, when all those other shows originally aired. You had to wait, a week, and you would get together with your friends and sometimes have parties and watch the show and all react, and that's one of the things I have liked about doing the watch party is kind of watching it with friends. So that's cool.
Yeah, I agree, Julian. And I do just want to say thank you to Miss Angie, who's become a member of the PGS. Thank you for becoming a member of the Burnettwork, Miss Angie. So great that you are here. We so appreciate your membership. And don't forget, when you do become a member, guys, you have access to the member calls, which I think it might be this weekend. I'm not sure. I can't remember, or next weekend, but you do have access to the member only calls on the weekends, every other weekend, featuring Robert. And I also want to say thank you for the super chat, Murphaderf, 4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Says Ensign says I'm just the cook. So great instead of saying I'm just the barber. Reference to episode Starship One. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Murphy Durf. It is great to kind of look back at this episode now that it's been a day or two ago. And of course, Tom Jr. Jackson says, welcome all. Please check the like and subscribe buttons if you have not done so yet. Please do. Guys, thank you so much for your patience tonight. I also want to say hello to Lorena Creole. Hi, Lorena. How are you, my dear? So good to see you here tonight. Also, too, a lot of you who are here. Amuki MC. Um, we also have Rich B313. Scott Bartholomew is here. Andrew Steele. Hi. The Islamic. Hello. Says hello to everybody. Film Freak. Hello, Film Freak. Says hello, Imagination Connoisseurs. Son of John. All right. I'm here. So engaged. Yes, you are here. We are engaging, of course. Hello again to Lorena Creole. Hello, Lorena. So good to see you. Chris Zilli, 1 hour later. Charlie the Unicorn. Yeah, says the Borg aren't bad. They're just misunderstood. Darth Plato is here. Hi, Darth Plato. Efren Guzman. So good to see you. Great to see you, Efren. Joey. And someone who also has a very interesting name, Thrirt, says, Hail all Robuations, Darth Plato. Hail to you. And hail to everybody who is here. Dustin Cole is also here. Dustin, thank you so much for those generous super chats. I sure hope you can hear me, Justin. Uh, but yeah, um, yes. Thank you for the member who joined earlier. For just 99 cents, you can be part of our bi-monthly member Zoom only call with Robert. Thank you so much, Tom Jr. Jackson, our moderator, my very good friend. And we are all goof people, Tom Jr. Jackson. So, Julian, we've had a few days to kind of look over this entire series, this particular season, and it's been phenomenal what they've been able to accomplish. It seems like every single episode felt like a movie. Did you have that feeling as well?
Oh, the production standards were incredible for this show, for what they did on the budget that they were having to pull and throw this story together. It just I was always entertained every single episode. I wasn't sitting there going, well, what the hell's going on here? So yes, I loved every bit of it. And there were some great shots, great action, great things happening. So yeah, it was top 10 Star Trek, especially top 10 Next Generation Star Trek for me.
Yeah, I agree, Julian. I feel the same way. Six Scale Mafia, you guys know him as Six Scale Mafia. He's Anthony from Exo 6, guys, who makes those amazing Star Trek museum quality 1/6 scale figures. Hi, Anthony. He says the best part of season 3 is it will stand the test of time and be revisited and loved. Uh, and again, time and time again, as a proper send off for our crew. Yeah, that is something else too. Good point that Anthony makes is I couldn't have thought of a better send off, a better way to kind of tell the remainder of the story or a good portion of a story that we've been wondering about the crew for so long. Just like how Picard says he hadn't heard from Beverly for 20 years. It feels like we haven't heard from the crew for 20 years. So having that conclusion there really does kind of bring it together for so many of us. And I couldn't have said it better. Anthony from Six Scale Mafia, guys, check out Six Scale Mafia here on YouTube as well. He's the guy and the group that makes Exo 6 the wonderful 1/6 scale figures that many of you guys own of Star Trek, guys, from all of the series, the original series up into Picard season 3. So keep that in mind. And guys, please do subscribe to my channel, Positive Fandom, guys. As you know, I have my own YouTube channel as well. And thank you, Tom, for popping that up there. Please make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'm going to be playing Jedi Survivor coming up next week once it releases. So I'm excited for that. And maybe I'll even play some Star Trek Online. I don't know. It depends on whether I can do that. And Donnie Pearson is saying hello to us. Hello, Donnie. And yes, Donnie, I am back from I am back from the UK. He says hello to our Julian and all. Hope everyone is well. Yes, I am back. I'm back in the New York groove. Um, and it is great to be back here, guys. Always enjoy being hanging around you all. Guys, also remember to check out Ladies of the PGS on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Burnettwork. Now, I also wondered to myself, Julian, about how long it took them to write this season, because it wasn't something that would have taken a week or two. It wasn't that kind of season. It's the kind of season where I can honestly say maybe it took a year to write something that was this involved. and also had all of these very specific, I'm not going to call them Easter eggs, but very specific things that are inherent to Star Trek, deep embedded in the story, and even maybe some things. And I had made a joke about there was a part where there was a partition, and I said, yeah, it's like when you have to take your Apple computer and do the partition so you can run, PC and Mac at the same time. I said they've thought of everything. There are a lot of little nuances in there, and I'm sure if I watched even more carefully over the next few months, because I know I'm going to be watching and rewatching this show over and over again. But I was amazed at what they did accomplish, because, to be honest with you, it looked incredibly hard, Julian. It didn't look like an easy feat. It didn't look like something that the average person really could do. I think this might have been one of the best, as I had said before, one of the best seasons of Star Trek I've ever seen in my entire life. Do you feel that way, Julian? Is this one of the best?
Well, yeah, I think it's top tier Trek. And as to the production time and all that, I know that they pretty much did season 2 and 3 kind of back to back. They went from one right into the other. From everything I've heard, Terry and his team did not have that much time to put this together. And I'd have to imagine that an awful lot of this story was stuff perhaps that he was ruminating on and already kind of had behind, with things that he was thinking about. It's like, what would I do? What would I'd like to do? What would I like to see? It really helped that he was able to bring in a team that he was very comfortable with and had worked with before, a lot of people from 12 Monkeys. So he already had that going for him. And so I think we were really lucky that we had somebody who was such a fan, who has so much knowledge of the show, who has that knowledge from working with the series all the way back to Voyager and Enterprise and Deep Space Nine. He's had that institutional knowledge of working on Trek and knowing who he could reach out to for getting an awful lot of the stuff that he wanted to do by bringing in people like the Okudas and Doug Drexler and all that kind of stuff. He just did a phenomenal job. It really, I know everybody is like, we need Terry Trek. We're also, smart enough to know that the kind of shenanigans that, and political things that go on behind the scenes in the production, and we can hope, but I wish we were getting more Terry Trek, but it doesn't look like we're going to get that anytime soon. So perhaps in the future, hope springs eternal, I guess.
Yes, guys. And Julian, you make such a good point. And of course, guys, we have Six-Scale Mafia's subscription YouTube information here. So make sure you check out Six-Scale Mafia. He's been on the channel with Robert a few times as well. So it might have been last week. I think it was the most recent time he was on. So guys, please go ahead and check out Six-Scale Mafia's YouTube channel as well. As I said, he works with XO6. If you enjoy those figures, and there's so many more to come, they even just announced 3 figures from the new series, right? Anthony. One of the figures, of course, is one of the most incredible looking Amanda Plummer figures I've ever seen. It's astoundingly good looking. Also, it's an incredible figure of Worf. I wonder if I could find it, of Worf, that I was really impressed with. And it's the one from this particular season, this Picard season 3. If you wanted to collect that, that's coming up. And yeah, maybe I can just pull it up here just very quick. And I'm sorry, Julian, but I feel like I just have to show it because I just was so impressed with it. I hope I'm doing this right. It's cycling through. Let me see if I can just pause it. Okay. So as you can see, guys, I just wanted to show you quickly, XO6 has the figures. and you can see how cool, how good does this war figure look?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys. And that fantastic Picard figure, as well as the Amanda Plummer figure here. So, guys, just consider it in your collections or as a gift for somebody, because they will never forget you if you were to give them something so cool. What do you think of what you're seeing here, just in the short preview, Julian, for these figures?
I think they look awesome. If I had all the money, I'd be getting them.
Yeah, me too. And of course, I think it's very interesting that you guys got those out so quickly. Um, and then, I started to think about, looking at these characters and just how lucky we were to have the whole story be revisited again. Um, we've all been wanting to have this series happen, and something else that's happened, and Julian, you and I were talking about this, is that incredible end credit scene, where we feel like something else is going to happen. It does open up the door for possibilities, but right now, as far as we know, nothing's happening. But boy, Julian, it was incredibly satisfying to see Jack get his first assignment. When Beverly and Jean-Luc brought him to the ship, it was like they were shipping him off to college or something. The two happy parents bringing him there, and of course, we got to see Seven of Nine and Rafi on the bridge, and he's going to be a special counselor, kind of like, isn't that what Deanna was?
I don't think, not in that capacity. No, I think his breadth of knowledge in regards to dealing with a lot of those non-aligned, those worlds that aren't in the Federation, that he and his mother were busy helping. Those connections that he's made, and the knowledge that he's gained from their work, doing all that stuff, is probably going to come in handy for relations as they go out on their missions. So that's how I see him being, as a counselor, as a kind of a perhaps almost like what Neelix was, for Janeway. He has knowledge of these races and peoples that they're going to come across, these civilizations.
Yeah, and I think that was very interesting that you mentioned that, and I was actually watching a few episodes of Voyager today. Um, Now, I couldn't help but think about how, at the beginning of the episode, Chekhov is the president of, I guess, Earth, right? I mean, or is it of
Well,
the Federation?
of the Federation. So yes,
Okay.
and that Anton Chekhov. So that would be most likely Pavel's son, and it's just kind of cool that Chekhovs are still involved in Federation, things, and it's exciting, and of course, I first heard that, when we hear that message, and we don't know exactly, but it's like, oh my God, that's Chekhov. And you're like, how can he still be alive? But it's like, it's the future. Anything is possible. But then you see that it's Anton, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So it must be like a son or grandson, something like that. And it was cool. It was cool. And they originally had hoped to film that. Apparently, Walter Koenig lives next door to, or very near on the same street as Todd Stashwick.
Oh.
And so they asked if he wanted to be involved, and he said yes. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, they weren't able to actually film him, so they had to do the voiceover work like that.
Yeah, I thought the voiceover was good enough. It felt genuine, and exactly what you would expect. The beacon warning for anybody coming towards Earth, and warning them what was happening on Earth at the time. Funny enough, this isn't the first time we've seen Earth at the point of assimilation, and I guess it was, I can't remember which movie it was, where they assimilated Earth, and then you had to go back in time and see if you can um, undo all this stuff. But yeah, it's very interesting to see how they managed to work that into the story. Now, I think something else that thank you so much, Tom. It was First Contact. Thank you, Tom. In First Contact, when pretty much the Earth got assimilated, they had to go back in time and see if they can undo that mess. So thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about this Borg Queen. And Julian, you remember in First Contact, and I think it was First Contact, was when the Borg Queen, when we first saw the Borg Queen. Am I correct, Julian?
I believe so. Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting how she was so incredibly sexy, or let's say if she wasn't sexy in a sexual way, there was a certain level of desire that she seemed to be able to fulfill for Data. Well, although it looked good on screen, like it looked sexy on screen anyway. So there was a kind of sexual element to her. And now we see the Borg Queen very, very changed. What did you think about that transition from she was still very snarky, but she certainly seems like, I'm not going to say she lost some of her game, but has she lost some of her game? I don't think she could tempt anybody in the state that she was in. What did you
Yeah.
think about that, Julian?
Well, this is definitely a Borg Queen who has fallen on hard times. So hard that she's living in the husk of a mostly destroyed cube. She is hardly able to go most places and is sucking the life force out of the remainder of her crew, of her collective, which like eating her young essentially. So yeah, hard times. Not good for the Borg Queen. Yeah, she's definitely not at her top game.
But I almost wonder if this was a sign that she was in denial of what was inevitably happening to, let's say, the collective, if you will. She managed to snag Jack. Um, did we exactly know what it was about Jack and why Jack was targeted as the signal? Why did she want Jack to be the signal? Was there something special about him that made her want to get him for a particular reason? Do we know?
Well, I imagine it was involved with the whole reason that he being Picard's son, Picard who had been Locutus, and Locutus, Shaw lays it out for us pretty much. This is the only Borg that was so special he actually had his own name. I imagine that when they made Locutus, they did things a little bit differently, so he would not be in the manner of a drone. So he had upgrades, you might say. So he's not. He's the LX model. He's the luxury model, and so the nano probes that were in him probably did different things, and left that marker in his genome, changed his genetic makeup to remain with him, to manifest and make itself look like the syndrome and hide itself. And so he was not able. He has that so Jack comes out, and so she doesn't want Locutus. She doesn't want Picard, because he's already kind of like made him aware that he's not going to succumb to her, and so having Jack and kind of playing on that feeling that he wants to be connected to a larger something, instead of running around the galaxy with just him and his mom. So his genome, because of Locutus, and what that genetic material gave to him, made him the ideal for her plan.
Yeah, and so many of you are talking about her design and how you couldn't help but notice the difference in how she had changed from that incredibly seductive Borg Queen to what looked like such a deformation of what she was before. there was almost no control in her physical development, and she needed to have a physical form, I'm guessing, Julian, in order for her to execute this plan. In order for this to happen, she had to take some kind of physical form to have some kind of contact or talk to someone. And she didn't come across as being that incredibly seductive character anymore. And a lot of you are making some very interesting comics. Someone said it's almost like the ex-wife trying to seduce the stepson. There certainly are a lot of thoughts about this. Certainly, she's this being that had incredible control, but seems to have lost a lot of that control. And this was like her last hurrah, if you will, in possibly being or dominating the galaxy. This was the last chance that she could. Now, something that I also wanted to ask your opinion about. Someone says the Queen had aged like all the other original characters. I don't think she aged well. Scott, make a good point. Someone says, "Long live the Queen." Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to ask about was the changelings that were left on the ship. I heard them say something like, ironically, most of the changelings that had taken over human bodies, let's say, kept their, the people who they took over, the majority of them alive. And of course, we got to see Tuvok, he was fine. But in regards to these changelings, this is very interesting because I always got the impression that you really couldn't ever stop them from doing anything, because they had this ability to kind of change into whatever they wanted to. And they, it's impossible to defeat someone like this. But now we're seeing that there are ways, Beverly developed this method. Now you could detect where they are. I think it's very interesting. And I'm wondering, what are they going to do with these changelings? Are they going to bring him back to 31? Like, where will they go? What do you think, Julian? What do you think they're going to do with them now that they've captured, the infiltrators, if you will?
I would hope that, given how it's been exposed how poorly the Federation treated, the fact that we almost killed their whole race by creating a genetic virus which would take them out. I would hope that we've learned a lesson from that. Of course, they don't address it, but perhaps there is some sort of, given that Worf was able to get information from, we assume, Odo regarding this splinter faction of changelings, that maybe there is some sort of communication available between those remaining changelings on one side, on the one side of the wormhole, on the Federation side of the wormhole. Maybe they would turn them over to the custody of the changelings who abide by the peace treaty for some sort of re-education, I guess. It's the only thing I can think of. Some therapy, perhaps. Oh, buddy. That's the only thing I can think of. I would hate to think that they would make the same mistakes, by like trying to throw them into some sort of containment cell or doing terrible things to them as some sort of. I mean, certainly they need to pay for their transgressions of their attack, their terrorist attacks on the Federation, but at the same time, I would hope that they are not so harsh on them. But,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the fact that the Federation almost, was on the edge of doing, that to the changelings, as well as almost doing that to the Borg by sending Hugh, with some sort of a, virus that would screw them up. And, there's this bad history. It's like we need to make sure that we are not those bad people, right? But it's something that needs to be addressed as the Federation should look at itself and go, what are we really doing here? Who are we? What do we want to be? Who do we want to present to those who are not in the Federation?
Yeah, and I think that's a very good question because you can't help but wonder about that. And hello to Irene Jobson. Hope you were well, my dear. So good to see you as always. You know, I think it is very interesting trying to figure out, you know, obviously we got a lot from this season and it was very satisfying to watch, at least for me and for you and for many people. Um, I found it incredibly satisfying. I found it, you know, as I said, one of the best seasons I've ever seen. Um, what's your final takeaway? Since we don't have much time, what is your final takeaway of this season? Honestly, Julian, after seeing episode 10, um, if you could if you could say in a few sentences what you feel the season was trying to convey, how would you describe it in your own words?
Oh, well, it was really a chance for telling a story about what we leave for further generations, from one generation to another. The legacies that we pass on to our kids, to our constructs, you might say. You know, if you want to, you know, bring data into that fold, what we pass on to those who we deal with. You know, in our passings. You know, the way. What do we leave them? Do we leave them with something positive, or do we leave them with something negative? And if it's negative, are we going to be able to make amends for what we, you know, did in the past? That type of a thing. And I think that's a broad enough tale of what we were being told.
Yeah, I agree with you on that regard, certainly, Julian, and it was very well said. Um, and I also think that it demonstrates the need for communication and being around people that you care about. And so you know, it is true that sometimes we do lose contact with people. And I guess in this case with Beverly, he lost contact with her for 20 years or however long it might be. But it certainly didn't feel like they had lost contact for 20 years, did it? I mean, obviously they hadn't seen each other or whatever it was for a long time, but they were able to kind of pick up where they left off. And it certainly was a pickup where you left off, shocker, in the season, you know, with the reveal of Jack, and also the shocker of the fact that people are chasing after someone who suddenly has become the most important person in your life. So I think that if anything, this was a season that focused heavily on Jean-Luc. Um, and his experiences, because I know it's maybe some other seasons of this series it did people felt like it wasn't focusing on him, but this clearly was a lot about his personal experiences, going through a good portion of his life, even the years where he was completely unaware that he had a son. It involved that, so I thought that was very interesting. Another thing that I thought was very interesting was the relationship between, and you couldn't ignore this, especially since the Borg chose to assimilate the younger generation for, you know, because of brain development. But, you know, they could have come up with any reason as to why they were assimilating a specific age group, but they chose to focus on the younger generation. And I wondered, you know, and I think maybe you and a bunch of other people had said that it might have been kind of a message just about what can happen to the younger generation if they get swept up in things that they're unsure about or whatever it is, that we have to still look out for those younger generation that we care about. Being the older generation, we do care about you guys. If any of you are watching, you are important to us and you're part of this world too, and we do care about you. So I think a lot of that was shown in this season, how we do have this responsibility to guide them sometimes, and work with them. And I think that the level of cooperation between the generations was, you know, very just amazing to watch how far and how that relationship can grow. So I think that that was another very important thing that I got from the season. But the third thing that, and maybe the for me the most important one, was that the desire to focus on themes of science fiction was not lost in this. And it is true. that there were some very important and poignant uh, family themes and emotional themes in this, but there was a lot of science in this. Um, and I mean, you can't ignore DNA. Like it's clearly telling you right there that they manipulated DNA and they waited for a certain amount of time for those particular sequences to show up. And if you love science, if you love anything science related, you would love this season. As I said before, Julian, they went ahead and gave us these panels on purpose because they knew we were going to look at them and try and figure out what the puzzle was. And as Robert had said, I think Terry mentioned, it might be Terry, but it may not be Terry, but somebody mentioned that the answer is in the panels. And so I thought, oh, if I look at these panels, I'm going to understand everything right away. Of course, I did not. But it didn't matter, Julian, because it enhanced the experience. And it was like, as I said before, it was almost like you were part of the investigation. As you were looking at the panel, it's like you were on the crew and you were looking at the console yourself because they allowed you to see it maybe for the first time with a lot of information on it. And I thought to myself, yeah, I said that's the type of thing you might see in a book or in something else. Wasn't expecting that level of interactivity and really just something that you could look at. I've never seen that before, really, in any kind of series that has been so explicit. So I think that there were a lot of milestones for me. Like I said, a lot of things that I was not expecting to care about or to even focus on in this season of Picard that came through for me that was kind of a surprise. So I did want to say that. And, you know, I think it's important. I think that a lot of this focus or the idea of focusing on science, because it is science fiction, is what drew a lot of us to the show, in addition to other, you know, themes, either moralistic or whatever you want to call them. But for many of us, we love the science in Star Trek. And of course, you know, there's that whole thing about how Star Trek, you know, came across with the iPad is from Star Trek and all these other, let's say, inspired inventions from Star Trek, so to speak. So who knows? Maybe there's something in this episode, I don't know, that might inspire another invention. But I kind of feel like this is going on that line of you know, science coolness that we all like, especially those of us who are science nerds. It was very satisfying. So with that being said, Julian, are there any last thoughts about your experience? I mean, obviously, I'm kind of concluding the series, but and we're going to talk more about the series going forward. But is there anything else you wanted to say about either episode 10 or any of the episodes in this incredible season 3 of Star Trek Picard?
I just loved it all. It's so many things right as far as telling story, as far as forwarding what it has happened with our favorite characters, and it felt correct. The things that they were going through, you know, it felt like it was affecting them the way that we would expect it to for the characters that we know. And in a lot of ways, it was almost like the way there was time given to develop through the 10 episodes what was going on. It was like reading a book, and you know, like I said, it was like we know it was broken up into those, you know, chunks of like little mini chapters, and it was like reading the book or watching several movies all in a row. It was just so wonderful, and the impact. I was watching reviewers on other channels today and yesterday, and they would talk about certain scenes from it, and it would get me teary. Just thinking about it, just talking about it. Not, you know, I didn't even have to see it. I would just be thinking about it and going, "Oh my God, that was so good," you know. So I just so tickled about everything that 7 of 9 has been able to accomplish. I love how well that they, you know, treated her character, and it was exciting to see. And I just really, really, really hope that at some point in the not too distant future we get some more
Trek storytelling that is on par with what we were able to enjoy for the last 10 weeks.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you just said, Julian. And Mark's comment is making me laugh. I agree 100%. Now that we've gotten this incredibly satisfying series, which I'm going to enjoy probably for the next year or two, I would like to see what happens with Jack's story and, of course, Sydney's story and the rest of that incredible crew on board with Captain Seven. Because it's going to be incredible going forward. The adventures that they will have. I don't want to wait another 20 years. Maybe we have to wait a few years, but I don't want to wait too long to finally get the answer to that. Julian, where can people find you?
They can find me right here on the Burnettwork, doing wonderful content with URM, or they can reach out to me at Facebook, Julian Mushkin. I'm there at Facebook, and that's where I'm at.
And guys, you can always find me here on the Burnettwork with Julian on PGS Treks or on other shows as well. Coming up, I'm going to be doing Midnight Musings with Robert and Lael. But you can also find me on my own channel, Positive Fandom. I'm going to be streaming Star Wars Survivor coming up, live streams every day, as you guys know. Midnight. Oh, it starts at 12:30. Okay, thank you, Tom. It starts at 12:30, but I'm going to end the show now, just so I can get a short break. But I did want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson, my moderator, collaborator, and good friend. We are all goof people, Tom. Thank you so much for your help as always. Julian, it's such a pleasure doing these live streams and reviews with you. And guys, Julian and I are going to continue. We're not stopping. We're going to continue. PGS Treks will continue. We're going to be talking more Trek. We're going to be talking about the series. We're going to be talking about everything and anything Trek coming up. So don't worry. PGS Treks is not ending. This is just this particular part that Julian and I are finishing. But PGS Treks will live on. As you know, this is a Burnettwork, so there will always be some kind of Trek talk going forward. And on behalf of everybody in the chat, all of you guys have been so phenomenal. Thank you, Mark Spector's avatar. It's so great that you all are showing up for these PGS Treks. And honestly, for every show on the Burnettwork, the PGS is one of the best communities out there. And I'm so proud to be a part of it. Thank you so much for the support, guys. And what an incredible season 3 of Picard. We were so lucky to get this, and I'm so happy. Yes, you will see me later. I'm so happy to have shared this whole season with every single one of you. Thanks so much for the support, guys. And obviously, I'm trying to do it correctly in front of me. Live long and prosper, guys.
LLAP.
Live long and prosper. And always, guys, remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Cheers.